Okay, so I initially posted an update video for this build since the changes to mental dexterity and burn. Um, that video kind of went over how to keep playing the build using mental dexterity, and it involved dropping lava burst for lava lash. I think that's wrong, so I'm making a new video and I'm getting rid of that old video. I think you can keep the build pretty much the exact same. You just run burn instead of mental dex. Like, we just lose mental dexterity. I swapped to pure elemental, and I think in like a single like solo content, like I'm just farming gold right now. This build still feels very decent, consistent. I would say the change, like, how do I put it? If you can imagine a bell curve, this build feels as though the bell curve is very wide, and it doesn't go very high. Like, it doesn't peak super high. So it's similar to enhancement in that sense, where enhancement, like, it can have really high highs, but it can also have like pretty decent lows. This can have like really low lows, but pretty good highs also. Where, and I think also, like, in a dungeon situation, the new burn is gonna just be really nice, just for the AoE damage. But the other thing with the new burn that's really nice is the duration is massive. Being able to pump 2 earth shocks in the duration of 1 flame shock really helps her damage, because beforehand a lot of what we had to do was... Oh, it resists, nice. A lot of what we had to do was reapply earth shock so that when we got Maelstrom, we were going to hit lava burst, you know, it would crit. But now that it lasts so long, there are instances where you can get 2 lava bursts for 1 flame shock, which is very nice, and feels good and lets us get, you know, more damage. The unfortunate thing is the lows, like when you hit a low, it is very low. Like, there are definitely instances where you are just standing there and you're auto-attacking and you're just dying, basically. Like, you're just watching yourself die. I think when you're fighting an enemy like higher level than you, that is going to be super, super, super apparent. And that's just gonna feel terrible. But when you're doing like a raid or a dungeon or something, I think just going straight elemental, like straight casting, is probably going to be... Well, in a dungeon, depending on the dungeon, it's probably going to be equal to or maybe worse. But in a raid, elemental's going to be better. You could be using Power Surge instead of Maelstrom. But the reason we can't really do that in a dungeon is dungeon stuff is just so bursty right now, and like packs of enemies just die so fast that your value on Power Surge is going to be so few and far between, that it's just Maelstrom is just going to be generally better. Like, if you're fighting a pack and you're not even getting half the duration, like, even before the burn changes, most of the time, like, enemies would die, like, just trash mobs would die before before the flame shock even wore out. And if we're talking about, like, optimizing our, you know, getting those procs, it's a 5% chance. I know you are hitting more enemies, like you hit 5 now, So it could be better, but I think the instances in where that's going to be like a big difference maker, in terms of power surge procs, not just damage overall. Obviously, it's way more damage, but in terms of like power surge procs, I only think there's only like a couple. You know, there's only like a couple packs where I could see that being like really make a big difference. And sure, you're gonna have instances where you hit it, you know, hit power surge almost instantly, and it feels amazing, and you are basically like two-shotting a bunch of stuff. But those instances are so few and far between that I just don't think. But in a raid scenario where stuff isn't as bursty and things aren't just instantaneously dying, then yes, I can see Power Surge being much better. But for now, we're going to run Maelstrom and we're going to run Static Shock still. I thought Rolling Thunder would be good with the Lava Lash, but it's really bad. It's not good at all. It might be good in a dungeon scenario, but the 30% is just too low, and you just can't, like... You just cannot... Like, you're using Earth Shock so much that you never get... Like, you don't ever get the full benefit of Rolling Thunder, is the problem with it. In this build. Because maybe it procs once off of a Maelstrom Lightning or Maelstrom Chain Lightning, and then you're basically Earth Shocking off cooldown, so yeah, you just never really get the full benefit, and it just feels kind of shitty. So I just stick with Static Shock, and Static Shock, I use Lightning Shield goes away pretty quick, so I know like that's the damage I'm... Oh. That's damage that's, you know, going out. Let's open these. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The build's the same. We just are dropping... we are just dropping Mental Dexterity for burn. And it's playing the exact same. So if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask. You can also just... I think my first video, actually, I said I'm going to get burn. So, yeah. You can just keep referring to the first video. The only difference between the first video and this video is I have gotten rid of Elemental Focus, and I took 3 points out of Reverberation so that I could put all 5 points into Flurry. But other than that, it is basically the exact same. Double Wind Fury on daggers. Yeah. My gear, I just hit 50 a few days ago. My gear is like not insane or anything. But yeah. Again, I do want to reiterate, this build is not like... I'm not saying that this build is like amazing. Like, it's not. I'm not saying it's the new meta or it's super strong. It contends with meta builds, but if you want to like, if you want to just optimize yourself and like do as much damage as possible and be like uber DPS, just go like. Obviously, it depends on the setting, but in terms of most like consistently, just play enhancement. Enhancement gets to keep mental dexterity. Like, nothing has changed for enhancement shamans whatsoever. They're still very, very strong. Yeah, so just play enhancement. But yeah, that's it. That's the update. So if you have any questions or anything about that, feel free to leave a comment. Yeah, that's it. See you later.